Hare Krishna Matajis, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. I'll be right back, Matajis. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev.
How are you doing, Manasi Ganga Mataji?
I am doing fine, thank you.
Good.
Are you, oops.
Is Leela Manjari joining today? Or is she, no, huh?
She texted me that, she's busy and that she put me as co-host, but I texted her back saying that I'm using my phone. And so I don't know how to do it on my phone, how to share. So, and she.
Okay.
Lavanya. Is Lavanya on yet?
She is on. Yeah, she's there.
Okay, so I guess she can share her screen.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Yes, Mataji.
Okay, so I guess Leela Manjari would like you to share the screen. I'm using my phone and I don't know.
Then Mataji, can you wait? I'll just log into my computer. I am also joining through phone.
With the phone.
1 second. I'll just join through computer. And I can do the screen sharing.
Who's supposed to be the reader today?
I'm the one who's doing class today.
Okay.
Mataji, I'll exit this and I'll join again through my computer.
Okay.
Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Ganananjana Shalakaya
Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam
Vanchakapatirbhyacha kripa sindhuva evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara
Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nisham Bhagavati Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So today, Matajis, we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 7, the sacrifice performed by Daksha, texts 1 through 6. I was not here for the very last class of Chapter 6, the very end. Would somebody, before we go on, please give me a summary of what happened in that very last section that was here? Okay, I gather that nobody.
It was just a wrapping up of what all Lord Shiva wanted of all the people who had derided him. He said this person will be able to eat through this one's teeth because he had shown his teeth in derision to Lord Shiva. Somebody else will have this person's arms, somebody else will have this person's hands because they had lost their hands, arms in the battle. And so he was just giving them, the ability to use through someone else. Someone else will be able to see through this one's eyes like that. So it was just a wrapping up of basically all that had happened to the previous people in that melee after they had disrupted after they had insulted Lord Shiva. His followers came and disrupted the sacrifice, and there was a big fight. So he then was pacified by Lord Brahma. And then, the priests and the soldiers, they recovered by his grace from the injuries. And then they all said, please take your portion of the sacrifice and be satisfied. And so he agreed to do that.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much, Sri Devi. Okay, so I guess we can start with text 1. Would anybody who has a book care to read text 1?
Mataji, I have, I'm sharing the screen. Can you able to see?
Okay. I guess I will read it. Maitreya Uvacha Ityajena Nunintena Bhavena Paritushyata Avyada Ayi Mahaba Baho Prahasya Shruyatam Iti. Translation. The sage Maitreya said, O mighty armed Vidura, Lord Shiva, being thus pacified by the words of Lord Brahma, spoke as follows in answer to Lord Brahma's request. Text 2. Mahadeva Uvacha Nagam Prajesha Balanam Varnaye Nanuchit Chintyate Deva Maya Vibhutanam Dandastatra Tritomaya. Translations and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Shiva said, my dear father, Brahma, I do not mind the offenses created by the demigods. Because these demigods are childish and less intelligent, I do not take a serious view of their offenses, and I have punished them only in order to right them. Purport. There are 2 types of punishment. One is that which a conqueror imposes on an enemy, and the other is like that a father imposes on his son. There is a gulf of difference between these 2 kinds of punishment. Lord Shiva is by nature a Vaishnava, a great devotee, and his name in this connection is Ashutosh. He is always satisfied, and therefore he did not become angry as if he were an enemy. He is not inimical to any living entity. Rather, he always wishes the welfare of all. Whenever he chastises a person, it is just like a father's punishment of his son. Lord Shiva is like a father because he never takes seriously any offense by any living entities, especially the demigods. Text 3. Prajapatir Dagda Shirshino Bhagavata Jamukam Shira Mitrasya Chakshushek Sheta Bhagam Svam Barhisho Bhaga. A translation. Lord Shiva continued, since the head of Daksha has already been burned to ashes, he will have the head of a goat. The demigod known as Bhaga will be able to see his share of sacrifice through the eyes of Mitra. Would anybody care to read text 4?
I can read, Mataji.
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, just a minute. Text 4. पशु तु यजमानस्य दद्भिर्जक्सातु पिस्तभुक् देव प्रकृति सर्वांग ये मा उच्छेसनम दधु. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The demigod Pusha will be able to chew only through the teeth of his disciples. And if alone, he will have to satisfy himself by eating dough made from chickpea flour. But the demigods who have agreed to give me my share of sacrifice will recover from all their injuries. The demigod Pusha became dependent on his disciples for chewing. Otherwise, he was allowed to swallow only dough made of chickpea flour. Thus, his punishment continued. He could not use his teeth for eating, since he had laughed at Lord Shiva, deriding him by showing his teeth. In other words, it was not appropriate for him to have teeth, for he had used them against Lord Shiva. Do you want me to read the next one?
If you would care. Sure, Mataji, thank you.
Bahubhyam asvino pushno hastabhyam kritabhahava bhavantvi advaryavaschanye bastasmasrur bhrugur bhavet. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Those who have had their arms cut off will have to work with the arms of Ashwini Kumara, and those whose hands were cut off will have to do their work with the hands of Usha. The arms were cut off will have to work with arms of Ashwini Kumara, and whose hands were cut off. Okay. The priest will also have to act in that manner. As for Bhrigu, he will have the beard from the goat's head. Bhrigu Muni, a great supporter of Daksha, was awarded the beard of goat's head, which was substituted for the head of Daksha. It appears from the exchange of Daksha's head that the modern scientific theory that brain substance is the cause of all intelligent work is not valid. Brain substance of Daksha and that of a goat are different, but Daksha still acted like himself, even though his head was replaced by that of goat. The conclusion is that it is the particular consciousness of an individual soul which acts. The brain substance is only an instrument which has nothing to do with real intelligence. The real intelligence, mind, consciousness are part of the particular individual soul. It will be found in the verses ahead that after Daksha's head was replaced by the goat's head, he was as intelligent as he had previously been. He prayed very nicely to satisfy Lord Shiva and Vishnu, which is not possible for a goat to do. Therefore, it is definitely concluded that a brain substance is not the center of intelligence. It is the consciousness of a particular soul that works intelligently. The whole movement of Krishna consciousness is to purify the consciousness. It doesn't matter what kind of brain one has, because if he simply transfers his consciousness from matter to Krishna, his life becomes successful. It is confirmed by Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who takes up Krishna consciousness achieves the highest perfection of life, regardless of whatever abominable condition of life he may have fallen into. Specifically, anyone in Krishna consciousness goes back to Godhead, back to home, on leaving his present material body. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Manasi Ganga Mataji, are you interested in reading that last text 6?
Maitreya Vacha Tara Sarvani Bhutani Shrutva Mirhustamatitam Paritustat Mabhistata Sadhu Sadvi Iti Atta Bruvam. Translation. The great Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, all the personalities present were very much satisfied in heart and soul upon hearing the words of Lord Shiva, who is the best among the benedictors." Purport. In this verse, Lord Shiva is described as Midustama, the best of the benedictors. He is also known as Asustosha, which indicates that he is very quickly satisfied and very quickly angered. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that less intelligent persons go to the demigods for material benedictions. In this connection, people generally go to Lord Shiva, and because he is always quickly satisfied and gives benedictions to his devotees without consideration, he is called Midustama, or the best of the benedictors. Materialistic persons are always anxious to get material profit, but they are not serious about spiritual profit. Sometimes, of course, it so happens that Lord Shiva becomes the best benedictor in spiritual life. It is said that once a poor Brahmana worshipped Lord Shiva for a benediction, and Lord Shiva advised the devotee to go to see Sanatana Goswami. The devotee went to Sanatana Goswami and informed him that Lord Shiva had advised him to seek out the best benediction from him, Sanatana. Sanatana had a touchstone with him, which he kept with the garbage. On the request of the poor Brahmana, Sanatana Goswami gave him the touchstone, and the Brahmana was very happy to have it. He now could get as much gold as he desired simply by touching the touchstone to iron. But after he left Sanatana, he thought, if a touchstone is the best benediction, why has Sanatana Goswami kept it with the garbage? He therefore returned and asked Sanatana Goswami, "Sir, if this is the best benediction, why did you keep it with the garbage?" Sanatana Goswami then informed him, "Actually, this is not the best benediction, but are you prepared to take the best benediction from me?" The Brahmana said, "Yes, sir. Lord Shiva has sent me to you for the best benediction." Then Sanatana Goswami asked him to throw the touchstone in the water nearby and then come back. The poor Brahmana did so, and when he returned, Sanatana Goswami initiated him with the Hare Krishna mantra. Thus, by the benediction of Lord Shiva, the Brahmana got the association of the best devotee of Lord Krishna and was thus initiated in the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you, Mataji, for reading today. Now we have a new chapter here. And as we know, Daksha did not satisfy Lord Shiva. There was a big disaster. There was a big fight at the sacrificial arena. And Daksha got killed by Lord Shiva and Lord Shiva's associates, and he lost his head. Now, it was saying back in the last chapter that, my dear Lord, this was in the 51st text, Lord, by your mercy, the performer of the sacrifice, King Daksha, may get back his life, Bhaga may get back his eyes, Brigu his mustache, and Pusha his teeth. So these, I believe, were associates of King Daksha or Lord Daksha, and they lost these things in the fight. And Lord Brahma was the only one, the father of Lord Shiva, who, from what I'm understanding, was pacifying or mitigating the intensity of what had happened. He pacified Lord Shiva and he spoke to him, okay? And Shiva said that he didn't mind that the demigods had created offenses because they were not very intelligent, okay? And so he didn't take their offenses very seriously, and he was punished in order to right them. So in the second text, it's talking about two different types of punishments. And obviously, you've got two different kinds. You've got a conqueror when he imposes a punishment upon an enemy. More than likely, it's going to be fatal. He's going to kill that enemy. And the other is like a father who punishes his son. And Prabhupada said here that, there's like a gulf of difference between these two types of punishment. And Lord Shiva, being a Vaishnava and a great devotee, his name, now I don't know who Ashutosh is, but he is connected, I guess, to Ashutosh, meaning he's always satisfied. He didn't become angry as if he were an enemy. And we know about Lord Shiva being so exalted and that he always wished the best for everyone. He was not inimical to any living entity. And so when he chastises someone, it's just like a father's punishment. And he doesn't take seriously any offense by any living entity or by the demigods. Well, that's interesting because he definitely, you guys, you ladies can explain to me. I mean, he did get very angry at Daksha for insulting him, very angry, and look what ensued. And also because, Sati, Lord Shiva's wife, took her own life because her father, Lord Daksha, did not receive her properly, did not try to save her. And she was just beside herself. She was in the middle of this horrible situation between Lord Shiva and Daksha. And so she took her own life so that she would rid herself of any connection that she had to her father, Lord Daksha. And so when the Lord Shiva was talking, and he said to his father that, since Daksha's head has been burned to ashes, he's going to get the head of a goat, and Bhaga's going to be able to see, his share of sacrifice through the eyes of Mitra. So not through his own eyes, but through someone else's eyes. And in the fourth text, Pusha, these were the demigods who were on Daksha's side in the big fight. And he had lost his teeth. So the only way he was going to be able to chew was through the teeth of his disciples. And if he was not with his disciples, he'd have to satisfy himself by eating dough. made from chickpea flour. And it does say here, the demigods who have agreed to give me my share of the sacrifice will recover from all their injuries. I believe at the end of chapter 6, it was being discussed that sacrifices must be performed for the benefit of Vishnu, or for the benefit of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And these are called yagyas. And if we are not working for, when we are performing these yagyas, if we're not working for our own sense gratification, but rather for the satisfaction of the Lord, that is really considered a yagya. And the Lord, obviously in this age, now in Kali Yuga, it is not recommended to perform these particular types of yagyas. The only yagya we have to perform is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in Sankirtan and individually. Okay, so those who give to Lord Shiva his share of the sacrifice, they're going to recover from all their injuries. So apparently he is very kind. He's quick to anger, but he's also quick to be, how did they put it, satisfied. He also gets satisfied very quickly too. So they will recover if they change their behavior, okay, towards Lord Shiva. That's what I'm understanding here. Hopefully I didn't miss anything from missing that one class. So Pusha became dependent on his disciples for chewing, and his punishment continued. He couldn't use his teeth because he was making fun of Lord Shiva, okay? He was showing his teeth and he was deriding Lord Shiva, and therefore he was not supposed to have teeth. So if we mistreat the exalted souls in any way, or we make fun, or we don't pay our respects to them, there is a punishment that occurs. Now with Lord Shiva, we've come to find out that his punishment is less than maybe some others would punish, okay? Because he doesn't take so seriously some of the offenses that either the living entities or the entities or demigods perform. So it seems that these were just punishments for what they had done. But he's still easy to forgive, or let's say, or easy to be satisfied with the right types of performances or yagyas. Now, I don't know who the Ashvini Kumara is, but in this particular fight, the ones who had their arms cut off will have to work with the arms of Ashvini Kumara. So obviously they're not going to, these people who will have to work with arms of these Ashvini Kumara. I don't know that these are the 4 Kumaras, but I'm just wondering. And those whose hands were cut off have to do their work with the hands of Pusha. So, and also Brigu will get the beard from the goat's head. So it's very interesting. Many of their limbs were cut off, or their head was cut off, or their hands were cut off, but they had these substitutions and they had to work with these substitutions. And Brigu Muni, of course, now once again, I said these were the associates of Lord Daksha. He got the beard of the goat's head, which was substituted for the head of Daksha. Mamma mia. So we hear in modern science today that it's the brain that causes all intelligence. And we're finding out through the Vedas that this is not true. Okay, So, because obviously the brain of Lord Daksha, a living entity, and that of a goat are different, and especially a goat is not supposed to be considered very intelligent. But even though Daksha received a goat's head, he acted just like himself. And this is why Prabhupada gives the conclusion that it's not the intelligence is not brought about by brain substance, but rather by consciousness. And consciousness is separate from the brain. The brain is only a vehicle through which consciousness, what can I say, is manifested. But it is not the the brain is not the consciousness. So the brain substance is an instrument, okay? And so once we're going to find out in the next verses that after Daksha's head got replaced, he was still as intelligent as he had previously been. And he did what was necessary to appease Lord Shiva. He prayed to him and Lord Vishnu. And we would know this as human beings, that it's not possible for a goat to do such types of prayer, okay? So we know, we can conclude from this particular story that the brain is not the center of intelligence. And they've been doing studies on this. It's the consciousness that works intelligently. And they've been doing, you know, like there's some documentaries that you run into on the internet where they explain that they're doing experiments, and the brain and the intelligence are two separate things. They're finding that what was said in the Vedas is absolutely true. So that outside of the brain, the consciousness exists. And that's, you know, what's going to be needed for people to prove that there is something, that there's an afterlife, that the soul goes on after the brain is dead. And so what are we doing in this Krishna consciousness movement? We're trying to purify our consciousness. So we don't care what the brain, we don't care what kind of a brain we have. Are we too smart or we're not very smart? It's, we are to stop thinking in terms of matter or in the material sense, and we are to transfer our thinking to Krishna, okay? Transfer our consciousness to Krishna, and that will make our life successful. It's not how big our brain is, or, you know, how many accolades we've won, or, you know, how many A's we got in school. So what we learn as devotees is that if we take to Krishna consciousness, then we're taking up the highest perfection of life. This is what we're going to achieve. And it doesn't matter what kind of a condition we came into this material world. We might have fallen into some very bad situation with some people whom we feel are very, very, I don't know, unfair or nasty, whatever. But if it doesn't matter. If our consciousness becomes purified, we will understand that this is just part of material nature. This is not the spiritual platform. So once we take to Krishna consciousness, it says here, anyone in Krishna consciousness goes back to Godhead on leaving his present material body. Well, if we really become Krishna conscious, is my understanding, if we are not acting in mixed devotional service, you know, if we're acting in pure devotional service, we will go back home, back to Godhead. And the Lord knows this. He knows, and sometimes we may even make mistakes in our service. We might not do it perfectly, but if our heart is in the right place when we're doing it, that is the important thing, that we're doing this this practice with sincerity and love and devotion for Krishna. And we're learning to be very patient, as we've been told, patient as a tree. You know, a tree just stands, it can stand for hundreds of years, and some trees can have stood for thousands of years. So if we learn this idea of patience and tolerance, and we serve the Lord sincerely, and of course, we don't try to make offense of any kind, just that if we don't do it perfectly, the Lord will understand. He's only attracted by our love. He's only attracted by our devotion. And if it's done sincerely, he sees that, and he does reciprocate accordingly. So that was the fifth. And then in the sixth one, this was a very interesting story, because we come to learn of just how much of a benedictor Lord Shiva is, just how he is quickly satisfied, and he is quite merciful in so many ways. Okay, he's one of the best Vaishnavas. Okay, as a demigod, a lot of people don't feel like that about him because of the way he is dressed. Many times, you know, his hair is all disheveled. He looks like a pot smoker and all of this. But he's very, very exalted. And he's called a Midushtama, which is the best of the benedictors. And he's also known as Ashutosh. So he's satisfied and also quickly angered. So they say that less intelligent people go to the demigods for material benedictions. And so you will find many, especially in India, from what I'm understanding, that go to Lord Shiva for material benediction. Okay, because he gives benedictions. He's and he doesn't have. You don't have to have do anything special without consideration. He's the best. He will afford you the best benediction. And so, if you're a materialist, then you want to get material profit. And so, a lot of these materialists, they go to Lord Shiva, but a lot of materialists are not truly interested in spiritual life. But in spiritual life, Lord Shiva gives the best benedictions. And it tells the story here of a poor Brahmana. And he had been worshiping Lord Shiva, and he wanted a benediction. And Shiva told him to go see Sanatan Goswami. So he goes to Sanatan Goswami. He said, you know, Lord Shiva advised me to come out to see you to get a benediction. And Sanatan had a touchstone. And I guess now I'm not sure here. I think it's, this is not used metaphorically. I think this is an actual touchstone, which measures the level of metals, you know, like how much like gold there is, or how much silver, etc. So he had a touchstone, but he kept it with the garbage. And so the Brahmana, because he requested this benediction, Sanatan gave him the touchstone. And the Brahmana was really happy. He says, oh, wow, now I can get gold. I can just touch this touchstone to iron. I can get as much gold as I desire. So this was a material benediction. And then he starts to think, he walks away from Sanatan, and he's thinking, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be getting the best benediction. Well, if I'm getting the best benediction, why did Sanatan give me a touchstone, which is with the garbage? Okay, so he went back and he talked to Sanatan Goswami, and he asked him, hey, wait a minute, why are you keeping this with the garbage if this is the best kind of benediction? And so, you know, I think here we've got a test going on from Sanatan Goswami. It doesn't say that, but I'm surmising, because he told him, look, it's not the best benediction. So if you really want the best one, take this touchstone and throw it in the water that's nearby and then come back. And so the Brahmana did it. And when he came back, Sanatana Goswami gave him a Hare Krishna mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And so because of Lord Shiva, the Brahmana got the best association of got the association of the best devotee of Lord Krishna. And he was initiated in the Maha Mantra. And so it kind of showed me here in this purport, look, if you want something material, this is what I can give you. But if you want the real gold, the real benediction, then you're going to be able to toss out that touchstone and come back to me, and I'll give you something that money can't buy. And this is what he gave him. He gave him the benediction of the Maha Mantra. So that is my understanding. And I'd like, we have about 15 minutes to discuss. So if anybody has anything they'd like to add or correct or just comment on, now's the time to do so. Thank you very much, Mataji's. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for reading and summarizing. Ashutosh is none other than Lord Shiva himself. It's another name for Lord Shiva. So that's just something that you had asked. So I'm clearing that up. And the second thing I was wondering what you, Ashwini Kumaras are twin brothers. They're twin demigods. And they had, in this case, participated on the side of Daksha, unfortunately. So therefore, they were given that punishment. Other than that, I think you've summarized everything quite comprehensively. I don't remember if there were any other doubts in your, did you ask anything else, Govardhan Leela? I just remember this much.
Those two, yeah, because I didn't know who they were. And, my point
you asked one more. Yeah, you asked one more. You said, I'm puzzled by why Lord Shiva is described as angry, because he's described as being easily, pacified, as well as he doesn't take offense. He says, at least to Brahma, that I'm not taking offense. They are like, children, they're unintelligent. So why is he getting angry? But here, as Srila Prabhupada is describing, his anger is not like that of an enemy. He gets angry as a loving father would get angry with his sons for rebellious, sinful, wrong behavior, and his actions are to correct them, while the anger of an enemy is to destroy, to maim, to hurt, to punish. So the two qualities, are very different. The punishment is very different from discipline. As we say, a parent lovingly disciplines, while an enemy will punish very harshly. So that's the difference between his anger and the anger of an enemy.
Yes, Sri Devi, I understood that part, but I guess what I didn't get was that, when you cut off somebody's head, it seems you're very angry, that this kind of anger a father would not impose upon his son, or maybe he would, but I don't see a father being so angry that he would cut off his son's head in anger. That's kind of what I was getting at there.
Yeah, but that is on our level, we think like that. But Lord Shiva, being the greatest benefactor, he's thinking by cutting off his head and then giving him the head of a goat, he's rectifying one of the greatest faults of Daksha, which is pride. I mean, he gives back his life, but now he has to look at himself every day and see a goat's head. That's a daily reminder not to become proud again. So even that terrible act of cutting off his head is done with a purpose, with the benediction that he will now understand his mistake and not make that same mistake again. So it is done with rectification in mind. It may seem ghastly to us, but it is done with a purpose of rectifying his child, basically,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I have to take some of these acts in different, I have to look at them from a spiritual perspective, and understanding karma too, that some people they're just punishments when they perform, when they are, very sinful in this world. And sometimes it doesn't seem that they're going to get punished in this life. However, the punishment does come. It might take several lifetimes for that person to have to work through the karma of what they've done. For instance, I just wanted to say that, boy, we have a huge family. And in this family, I have so many cousins. I might not have I don't have brothers and sisters. I have step brothers, but I have so many cousins. And one of the cousins was coming home from work. This was 10 years ago. She was very young. I think she was like 23 years old. And she had been, had worked in a restaurant. She got tips and everything. So she put those tips in her pocket, etc. And she came home to her daughter and her partner. And as she was putting the key in the lock, 3 men came up behind her with a big sawed-off shotgun, and they murdered her. And I mean, the whole family was just devastated. Everybody knew who these people were that killed her, and all 3 of them had to face trial. But before the trial, they were not, they were not sentenced or anything. And it took all the way up until now to convict those 3 men, and they could not prove which one did it. And so all 3 of them, all they got was 10 years of a sentence. And, we know from the Vedas, if you commit a murder like that, it's a life for a life. If you commit murder, you should be murdered. And they are not. They're going to get off after 10 years. They're very young boys. And it's just, and sometimes you think there's no justice. But as Vaishnavas, we know that there is going to be justice, and that those 3 young men are going to have to pay the price for the murder they committed. And they probably will be killed in the same way that they killed her. This is terrible.
Oh, definitely. You're absolutely correct. No one can get away with anything. Nothing. Everything is being recorded, observed, and Chitragupta is noting down everything and he's keeping records of everything. So no one can get away with anything. You have to pay the price. In fact, the cow killers will be cruelly killed simply because they are killing cows. So sometimes we hear of some horrible disaster and 25 people in a bus and it rolled off the cliff and they plunged to their death, and we think, oh, how horrible, how terrible, and this and that. But that's karma cashing in and taking their lives because they harmed other people. So we don't understand how karma works, but it works because karma is under control of the Lord, and he decides. That's why we are so blessed to come to Krishna consciousness, because Krishna wipes the slate clean. He says, okay, all your debits, credits, everything I'm taking care of. You don't have to pay the price, or you have to pay a very small token price for whatever you have done in previous lifetime. If you committed a murder in the previous life, in this life, maybe you were going to be murdered, but instead you just get a small cut on your finger as a token punishment for what you did, which is what is murder and what is a small cut on your finger. So how blessed we are coming to Krishna consciousness. It's just amazing that our Supreme Father just pardons us for everything. It's literally the most wonderful pardon, because he just wipes the slate clean and says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishami Ma Suchaha. I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So how wonderfully blessed we are simply coming to Krishna consciousness.
Yes,
Thank-
Mataji. Yeah, that's so true. And sometimes I think, oh boy, I've done this and this and this in my life, and will I ever get purified? And the reality is that yes, we will get purified, and with our sincerity and attempts to be devoted to the Lord, and to try to stop these sinful activities, we will be rewarded by Krishna for that. And so yes, we do have the opportunity. He just loves us. He loves us, and he does give us that opportunity to come back to him. So, and thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to comment on or question or add?
Nothing, Mataji. Thank you for the wonderful class. I was just thinking about your whatever you were sharing about the ghastly punishment given by Lord Shiva. And I was thinking that Lord Shiva is in control or in charge of the mode of ignorance. So maybe because of that, his method of rectification is so ghastly.
Ah,
I was just thinking of that.
that also makes sense to me. Yeah.
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 Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful class.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being there for us, for all of us. Yeah, I'm still coming to understanding of a lot of things, maybe, but some things feel more difficult for me to understand than others, especially sometimes the violence that's committed in the Vedas when you think it's like material violence, but it is not. It is on a different level, and I have to keep remembering that so that my mind doesn't slip back into thinking, in a material way.
Yes, in Gita also we sometimes feel, "Oh, why is the Lord preaching violence?" But it's not violence actually. It's
No.
just so for justice sometimes you have to do violence.
Yes. Thank you very much.
What was really significant for today's reading for me was this most wonderful thing that Lord Shiva benedicted this poor Brahmana with. Says, go to Sanatan Goswami and get the best benediction. And the Brahmana happily goes and gets the touchstone. And then he thinks, wait a minute, if this was in the garbage, he must be having something much better. And Sanatan Goswami says, yes, I do have something better. This is not the best benediction, this touchstone, but are you prepared? And the Brahmana says, yes, he says, all right, go and throw that touchstone into the water and then come back. So he made him give up that material propensity to want material things before he was going to give him the best benediction of all, because you cannot have material desires and material attachments and material aspirations and also get the best benediction of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because you will not really understand the full value of it. It's only when we are thoroughly beaten up by the material energy that in great distress we come to Krishna consciousness and say, hey, oh Lord, please help me, please save me, please benedict me, please get me out of my suffering. And then we take to Krishna. Nobody willingly, at least as far as I know, we've all gone through a lot before we have come to Krishna consciousness. So the tendency of the conditioned soul to want to enjoy this material energy is very strong. It's a very strong conditioning. And because of our contact with the material energy for millions and millions and millions of lifetimes, it is also very hard to give it up. But finally, when he does that, he gets the greatest benediction of all, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So Lord Shiva is giving him the greatest benediction through this.
Yes. Yeah, and you cannot buy what he's giving him. You cannot, you cannot buy. It's not to be bought. This goes into the heart, and this is just, I also think this is the way I was brought up in in the practice I grew up in, that it wasn't quite worded this way, but the idea was the same. You've got to like give up all your possessions, give up everything, and then you'll be worthy to go back home, get back to Godhead. It's kind of that idea, and to take the best benediction is not something that's material. Obviously, I mean, we know that, but it's stated quite clearly here. Yes, Sri David. Okay, any last comments before we end today?
Hare Krishna Mataji, is Leela Manjari Mataji there? I would like to hear her.
She is recording this this class, but I don't know that she is available.
Oh,
Leela Manjari Mataji, are you available? She's the Katiravan Krishnamurti there, and I don't think she's available on Thursdays. She just starts the class, and then I don't know, maybe it's timed. I don't know how it's done, but I think she is busy, or she has some service today. But she's giving class tomorrow. You can ask her that tomorrow.
no, Mataji. I thought she is there, so I was asking.
No, I thought so too, but no, she's not there.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank you
for
very much.
being here and for
Thank you very much, Mataji.
participating in this class. We will meet again tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Very nicely explained. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.